I'm Daisy Wilson. I began writing in 5th grade and I adored it. I was all of a sudden in 7th grade and I started writing on a source called Wattpad. I read many stories before on that, and I decided that I was going to write my own. And it began with simple chapters, a few pages, and then people were commenting, more readers, and I told them I would update weekly. And I updated weekly, and they still liked it, and then I shared it with my GT teacher, Miss Rada, and she liked it a lot too. So then my writing process began, and we started editing. I went to some workshops, and everyone really liked my story and the idea that I was writing a story. So that continued, and I am here today and continuing writing. I'm editing, trying my best to make this into a story. My tools right now are Google Docs. I am able to share my story with anyone who I want to share with, so that is the easiest way that I can get editing input on my story. I started out with Wattpad, which is an online story sharing website where you can read stories, you can publish stories, you can get comments, likes, followers, but now I've moved on to Google Docs by transferring it. I think of ideas, and when I really like my ideas, I write them in my story, put them into my story somewhere that could fit. I don't write on any scratch paper, really. When I read, I use words, the words that I like, I write into a notebook, and then I use them into my story, but I simply write. That's my writing process, is I just write. I don't follow any other examples, I just write myself, and that's my writing process. I really like adventure. I just like the thrill of the emotions in writing. Sometimes I like romance, which kind of you can relate to, or you can kind of like dream of it, like, wow, that's kind of very classic. That's something that would happen in a movie, but I like reading those kind of genres. I am working on using the feedback and developing a story that is pleasable for the audience. Therefore, I'm going to take all my comments that I recently just sent out to a school in Berlin, and I'm going to take my comments and try to develop, like I said, a story that can relate to the audience or my readers. And I had high school students, so similar to my age, and they're going to tell me if they liked my word choice, if they liked my exposition, my writing in general. So I recently got a comment that says, "Hey Daisy, some of the words you use a lot of people wouldn't know about until they look the word up. Make sure you keep in mind who the reader is." So I'm still unsure what she doesn't like about my word choice, what words she would change if she were to write my book. So I think what I'm going to change is I have a sentence in here that contains the word derision, which to me means like mockery. I'm going to use a thesaurus to maybe look up a word that is a similar meaning to derision. I am considering the words mockery, insult. My sentence is, his lips are curved into a smirk that is full of derision. I could change the word. He's not really insulting her, but I feel as if he's mocking her, so I could say smirk full of mockery. Since I am still revising, I did not get to transition because all of a sudden she's getting knocked around and then she's jumping out of the plane, so I did not get to transition the way I hoped before I shared my document. So I might actually edit that. So right now I'm deleting the part that does not make any sense to myself or the reader. And as a writer, I like something and I think it in my head and then I write it out, but then rereading it several times, I don't like my word choice, so I will rewrite it or think of something else, or I'll come back to it remembering what I wrote, so I'll rewrite it again and then not like it again, and it's a constant circle, which takes me hours of writing. And then sometimes, if I am unsure what to write, I will reread the paragraphs before it to make sure I stay on track so my readers are able to understand what is going on. I recently wrote, his warm respiration penetrates against my cheek. I thrust my shoulders into the cushion, increasing the distance between us. Click, the notification of an unsecured signature. A crease of bewilderment arranges itself along my forehead. I fumbled to anchor the metallic tongue into the buckle. And that's where the confusion starts, is I began with the plane spinning in circles and her flying around and then jumping out of the plane. So the reader is confused on what is happening, what my settings are. I usually sit for quite a while and I just think on what I should write. I ponder upon my ideas, and that's usually what most of my writing consists of, is sitting and thinking, and then I write 2 pages up to a chapter at a time then. Even though the draft that I sent out is still my writing, it's just some of my old writing. My last year's goal was to determine what my exposition was going to be and how I was going to write it. And I did fully write my exposition, but I did not get to revise my entire story. So I am able to see clearly that most of my writing is not my revised copy. I'm still very unsure how to start my next paragraph, because it's such a odd way to end my last paragraph, which I might have to add in a transition sentence. Because I dwell on perfection for a really long time, because I don't think my word choice is the way that I would write it, which I should probably stop thinking like that, because most readers don't enjoy my word choice. The unrevised sentence I do have would make sense if I were to revise it into something that I would like, but so I just ended with my main character fumbling with her seatbelts in the plane, and then I write the plane spins in a full circle and so does my belly. This is not revised, to be clear, because this is not my writing. It is, but it isn't. Before I can buckle up, the man grabs my arms and hauls me to the back of the plane, which I can add a lot more detail to that. The unsteadiness of the plane as it's tumbling down. I'm still unsure what to write, so now I'm looking at more comments to see what I can edit. There was another comment referring to my word choice, so I'm going to go back through my story and read some of the words that might not appeal to most children my age. And some of the words that I really, really enjoy, I think I'm going to keep in, and if I were to get picked up by a publisher and they told me that I needed to change some of my word choice, or if they changed it for me, I guess that's the end of that, but I'm going to keep some of them that I really enjoy.